Doctor Who review. Today is going to be the woman who lived. 5 categories, as per usual. First being storyline and concept. The concept of this episode was really good. Like, it was essentially a continuation, not a conclusion of last week's story, The Girl Who Died. They used similar premises and similar characters, but it wasn't like a conclusion, and that's what makes it unique from any two-parter that we've really had since the New Who era. In terms of the storyline, it felt very simple, you could understand it really well, and there was no element of confusion, which I think is kinda inherent in some two-parters that you get, because they're introducing a lot of concepts and a lot of them will be answered in the second part. And sometimes when they answer them in the second part, sometimes it just doesn't make 100% sense, and that's usually down to the writing and just not understanding how the story works in some senses. And I think that this story worked really well in how it was just crafted and made a lot of sense, and it was just simple. It was just a really good story, and I don't have a lot of negative things to think about this, so for storyline and concept, it gets a 4 out of 5 from me. Now on to character portrayal. If you're going to look at it, basically it had 3 characters. It had the Doctor, had Maisie Williams' character, so me, Ashildr, or whatever you want to call her, and Rufus Hound, the character, which I can't remember his name, sorry. The Doctor, luckily, was not really joking in this episode. He was into his core elements. There was no real straying from what I thought the Doctor would be when it came to Series 8, and I thought that it was really, really good envisionment of what the Doctor, or the 12th Doctor, should really be. In terms of Ashildr / me / whatever you want to call it, that was interesting. No, I'm not saying it's bad, of course not, it was really good, and I think that it shows a good skill of Maisie Williams' acting, that she can do so many different roles. So she played the innocent sort of girl in The Girl Who Died, and then she's playing this highwayman, and now she's playing someone with ulterior motives and two-facing, and generally that was really good. In terms of Rufus Hound's character, which I do apologise, I just can't remember the name at the moment, that was good. I wouldn't say it's obviously the highlight, I don't think it was really used that much, but I think that it was good. If they're setting the character as someone who does comedy, that was really good, and I think that that deserves good enough. It was just that the character wasn't just really used that much, and so I can't really say whether it was that character. It was almost like a pantomime sort of like character. It's just like, oh, that is who he is. And for character portrayal, it's another 4 out of 5. From me. Now it's on to antagonist impression. Even though Maisie Williams is technically an antagonist in this episode, I think that she is not the antagonist. She's a person who's in the influence of an antagonist and is like an antagonist slave for a little bit. So I think the antagonist is Leandro, and he wasn't used that much, and I think that that was alright. It was more about, this episode was really about the interactions between the Doctor and Ashildr / me / whatever. Really had Leandro, whose motive was to open this portal, to use this like stone, I can't remember what the name of it is, but to use a stone to open up the portal and that would break hell. But that was kind of put to the side a little bit, and it just wasn't utilised that much. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just not an impression, and that means that antagonist impression gets a 2 out of 5 from me. Next is visual effects. Now usually what I do for this is, for the more recent episodes of Doctor Who review, is I would show you a little bit with me and try to show a little bit of like how some of the effects would work. And really there wasn't any effects, the only one being the one where they open the portal, and that's a similar to effect to what I explained last week. It is just essentially just something that they would have created in After Effects or something like that, and so I can't really show you that, but for the effect it was relatively good. I think they could have done it a bit better to make maybe what was actually the portal was showing a little bit more purple, It's a bit of personal criticism, but it's my opinion, and that means it gets a 3.5 out of 5 from me. Now on to personal enjoyment. Now, if you know how this series goes, it's essentially me taking my review from Twitter and then dividing it by 2. So my Twitter score was an 8 out of 10, which is a 4 out of 5, which means that the average is a 3.5 out of 5. This episode, if we're going to look at it objectively and look at it analytically, it was more about, like I said earlier, it was more about the interactions between the Doctor and Mace's character. And when I was watching it, I was thinking it was going to go for all episode long, and it pretty much did. I felt like it was some really good acting all the way through. It didn't rely on Moffatisms, it didn't rely on sort of like quirks like laughter and like the cards from Under the Lake and Before the Flood, or the sonic glasses, even though those did make a return, or the guitar. It just relied on acting and good storytelling, and that's what made it a good episode. You don't need, as I said, any of these sort of like humour points to make it a good episode, because frankly it kind of ruins the episode in some essences, because it's distracting from what the episode is. It's just trying to go, well, here's the episode and here's something else, and that's what this episode, The Woman Who Lived, didn't do. It was focused on so many aspects that Doctor Who is and has been and should have been. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this review, then give it a like. If you want to see the playlist, then it is over there. If you wanted to see last week's review, which was about the girl who died, it's over there. And if you want to keep to updates and stuff and things about this series and anything else that I do, such as gaming, F1, other Doctor Who things, that is there. So guys, thanks so much for watching. I've been Baril. This is the end credits. Signing out.
All that's left is a window to my soul. Come and get it.